All right, so picture this. You're watching Bitcoin and it's getting closer and closer to $100,000. It's so close you can almost taste it, and then bam, it just stalls out. So what's the deal with that?
Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack in this deep dive. Bitcoin has been on a total tear since the election, up more than 40%. It even got close to 100,000 last week, but now it's stuck just kind of hovering below that big milestone. So to help us figure out why, we've got some awesome insights from Bitwise's latest research note. Plus, we'll hear from some big names in crypto, like Mark Novogratz and Deutsche Bank's Marion Laber and some CNBC interviews. Our mission today is to uncover why Bitcoin is being held back, and we'll try to figure out what might happen next, and most importantly, what it all means for you as you navigate the crypto world. This recent rally has been wild, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And like with any kind of rapid climb, there's got to be a pause to catch your breath. And that's what we're seeing now. It's like profit taking 101.
Profit taking. So you mean like long-term holders, the ones who've been in Bitcoin for a while, they're deciding to cash in on those gains?
Exactly. You got to remember that Bitcoin has more than doubled in value this year. So it makes sense that some people are looking to lock in those profits, especially after such a crazy run-up.
Yeah, that makes sense. But does that mean the Bitcoin bull run is over? Are we about to see a huge crash?
Not necessarily. Bitwise's Andre Dragosh is actually calling this a bull market correction. And that's not the same as a total reversal of the trend.
That seems like a key difference. But what exactly is a bull market correction? Is that just a fancy way of saying a crash?
No, not at
Huh.
all. It's basically a dip in a larger upward trend. Imagine you're hiking up a mountain. You take a break to catch your breath before you keep going up. Dragosh points out that Bitcoin's valuations are still nowhere near excessive.
So it's more like a healthy reset than a total meltdown?
Precisely. But profit taking alone can't explain why Bitcoin is struggling right now. We also can't ignore the impact of leverage in the crypto market.
Leverage, I hear that word all the time when it comes to finance, but what about crypto? I mean, we're talking about digital currencies, not stock options or whatever.
Yeah.
That's a great question. And it really gets to the core of crypto trading. See, leverage lets traders increase their buying power by borrowing funds. Think of it like a megaphone for your money. It can make your gains bigger, but it can also make your losses bigger too.
So it's like a high risk, high reward thing.
Exactly. And Mark Novogratz, he's a big name in crypto, he thinks the amount of leverage in the market right now is making things really volatile. He even said that the crypto community is levered to the gills, which doesn't sound super comfortable.
Levered to the gills. What exactly does that mean for Bitcoin's price?
It means the market is super sensitive to any changes in sentiment. Even a small wave of selling could trigger a ton of liquidations and push prices down faster than anyone expects.
So leverage is kind of adding fuel to the fire, making the market even more likely to swing wildly. And crypto is already pretty volatile, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But leverage just cranks that volatility up to 11. And speaking of volatility, there's another interesting factor at play here.
Interesting. Tell me more.
Well, Novogratz mentioned this mysterious whale who's been selling off a bunch of Bitcoin lately.
A whale. Oh, is it someone swimming in Bitcoin or something?
Exactly. A whale is just a term for someone who holds a huge amount of Bitcoin, enough to really make a difference in the market.
And nobody knows who this whale is. I mean, why would they be selling now when the price is so close to $100,000?
That's the million-dollar question. It could be anything. Maybe they need cash. Maybe they think the market's about to shift, or maybe they just have a gut feeling. Whatever the reason is, this mystery seller is just adding another layer of complexity to an already crazy situation.
Okay, so we've got long-term holders taking profits. We've got a market that's totally pumped up on leverage. And then we've got this mysterious whale making waves. No wonder Bitcoin's having trouble breaking through $100,000. But does that mean $100,000 is out of reach? I mean, what are the experts saying?
It's definitely a lot of forces working against it, but $100,000 might still be possible. David Morrison, an analyst at Trade Nation, he thinks $100,000 is like a big mental barrier. But he also thinks that if Bitcoin breaks through, it could actually trigger even more price surges.
Interesting. So is it kind of like breaking a dam? Once that mental barrier is gone, we'll see a flood of investment.
That's a great way to put it. Once that barrier is broken, it could trigger a wave of FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yeah.
People who were hesitant to buy in before might suddenly jump on board, and that'll push the price even higher.
It makes you wonder what those investors are thinking, right? Are they just glued to their screens waiting to buy the second it breaks through? Do they have their buy orders all set up? It's like a mind game.
It really is. And while we're talking about psychology, we should also think about the potential impact of Trump's crypto legacy.
Oh, yeah. Trump, he made some pretty big promises about crypto during his campaign, turning the U.S. into a global crypto hub, making a national stockpile of Bitcoin. even replacing the SEC chair with someone who's more pro-crypto. Do you think any of that will actually happen?
Well, Marion Laber from Deutsche Bank, she's not so sure about the national Bitcoin idea, at least not right now. She pointed out that big changes like that would need Congress to approve them, and that's never a sure thing.
So even with Trump's support, there's no guarantee those crypto-friendly policies will actually become reality.
That's politics for yes, lots of promises, but actually getting things done is a whole different story.
True. What about Labor's views on regulation? She seems to think it could actually help the industry. Isn't that a little counterintuitive? I mean, wouldn't regulation just stifle crypto's whole vibe?
It might seem that way, but her argument is that while regulation might slow things down at first, it could actually make the market more stable and clear. And that could attract more institutional investors and lead to wider adoption.
So it's like a trade-off, slower growth for a more secure and legitimate market. And that brings up a question for you, our listener. What do you think about regulation? Do you see it as a necessary evil to protect investors and get crypto into the mainstream? Or do you think it goes against the whole idea of crypto being decentralized and anti-establishment?
A big question to think about.
Uh-huh.
And it's going to become even more important as crypto keeps growing and regulators start paying more attention.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the U.S. This is a global thing.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. Profit-taking by long-term holders, leverage making the market jittery, a mystery whale, making moves that psychological barrier at $100,000, and of course the potential impact of regulation. It's a lot to take in.
It is. It just shows you how complex and dynamic the crypto market really is.
But there's another big event coming up that could really shake things up for Bitcoin. The halving.
Right, that halving.
The halving. It sounds kind of technical, maybe even a little scary. What exactly is it, and why should our listeners care?
It's actually simpler than it sounds. The halving is basically a pre-programmed event in Bitcoin's code. It happens about every 4 years, and it cuts the rate of new Bitcoin creation in half.
So that's like a built-in scarcity thing.
Exactly. And that scarcity is one of the key reasons why Bitcoin is considered valuable. As the rate of new supply goes down, it puts upward pressure on the price, at least in theory.
Less supply, more demand, higher price of team. Basic economics. But how does this relate to what's going on with Bitcoin right now?
Well, the next halving is supposed to happen sometime in 2024. And as we get closer to that date, it's going to become a big topic of conversation in the crypto community.
So people are already thinking about the halving's impact, even though it's still a couple of years away.
Oh, absolutely. Remember, the crypto market is all about expectations and sentiment. Traders are always looking ahead, trying to anticipate what's going to happen and position themselves accordingly.
So the halving is like this shadow hanging over the market, influencing how people are trading Bitcoin right now.
That's a great way to put it. It's like a countdown clock ticking away in the background. Adding to all the excitement and anticipation around Bitcoin, it really shows you how much long-term thinking goes on in the crypto world.
So people aren't just focused on the next few weeks or months, they're thinking years ahead. It's like they're playing a whole different game than traditional investors.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that makes crypto so different from traditional financial markets. It's a space where long-term vision and belief in the technology can potentially pay off big time.
Speaking of long-term vision, let's zoom out for a sec and think about the bigger picture. What happens if Bitcoin actually breaks through $100,000? What could that mean for mainstream adoption? Will we start seeing people buying their groceries with Bitcoin?
That's the big question, isn't it? If Bitcoin does smash through that psychological barrier, it could change how people see it. Right now, it's mostly seen as an investment asset. People buy it hoping to make money. But at $100,000, it might start to be seen as a legitimate currency.
So you think we might actually see Bitcoin being used for everyday transactions, like paying for your coffee with Bitcoin?
It's definitely possible. We're already seeing some early signs of that happening. But a price surge to $100,000 could really speed things up.
It's an exciting thought. Imagine a world where Bitcoin is as widely accepted as credit cards or cash.
It's definitely possible. But we also have to be realistic. There are some big challenges to overcome.
Like what?
For Bitcoin to truly become a mainstream currency, it needs to fix some of its limitations, like scalability and volatility.
Right. Scalability is about the network's ability to handle lots of transactions. And volatility, well, that's pretty self-explanatory. Bitcoin still goes up and down like crazy.
Exactly. And those are just a couple of the hurdles Bitcoin needs to clear before it can really go mainstream.
So it's not just about the price. It's about the technology and the infrastructure, too. It's a complicated situation with a lot of moving pieces.
Precisely. It's a complex ecosystem with lots of moving parts. But one thing's for sure, the journey's far from over. And
it's a journey that we as both observers and participants get to be a part of. It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It really is. And it's just the beginning. Who knows what the future holds for Bitcoin and the whole crypto space? But one thing is certain. It's going to be a wild ride.
Okay, so we've talked about profit-taking leverage, that mystery whale, the psychological weight of $100,000, the halving countdown, and potential regulation. That's a lot to digest.
It is. It just shows you how dynamic and complex the crypto market really is.
But, even with all this uncertainty and volatility, there's a sense of optimism in the air, like something truly revolutionary is happening right in front of us.
I agree. There's this energy in the crypto space, a sense of possibility and potential that's unlike anything I've ever seen before.
It does feel like we're standing on the edge of something truly groundbreaking, but as with any uncharted territory, there are risks involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyone who's thinking about getting into crypto needs to be careful. This isn't about throwing your money at the latest trendy coin or just following the hype.
Exactly. It's about understanding the technology, weighing the risks and the potential rewards, and making smart decisions based on solid research.
Exactly. It's about doing your homework, forming your own opinions, and not just giving in to the fear of missing out.
And remembering that the crypto market is still relatively young, it's unpredictable, it's got a history of both amazing highs and really painful lows.
Precisely. It's a roller coaster ride, no doubt about it. But for those who are willing to buckle up and embrace the journey, it can be incredibly rewarding.
Well said. And that brings us to the heart of what we're trying to do here at the Deep Dive. Empowering you, our listener, with the knowledge and insights you need to navigate this exciting and ever-evolving world. So before we wrap things up, let's leave you with a final thought to ponder. We've talked about what's holding Bitcoin back from $100,000, the potential impact of regulation, and the possibility of mainstream adoption. But here's the real question. What happens after $100,000? If Bitcoin does break through that barrier, what's next? Is it just another milestone on the road to even greater heights? Or could it be the peak of a bubble just waiting to burst?
Those are questions that only time will answer. But one thing is for sure, the journey is going to be fascinating to watch.
Absolutely. So stay curious, stay informed, and stay tuned for more deep dives into the world of crypto and beyond. We'll be back soon with another episode exploring a whole new frontier of knowledge. Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. We'll be back soon with another episode exploring a whole new frontier of knowledge. Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Absolutely.
It really does feel like we're on the verge of a seismic shift in the financial landscape.
Yeah, I agree. It's an exciting time to be following the crypto markets, that's for sure.
But as exciting as this all is, we need to remember that not everyone is convinced. There are still a lot of skeptics out there who think Bitcoin is just a speculative bubble waiting to burst.
That's true. There's always skepticism when it comes to new technologies, especially ones that challenge the traditional financial systems. It's important to acknowledge those dissenting voices and understand their concerns.
So what are the main arguments against Bitcoin? What are the skeptics saying?
Well, some critics argue that Bitcoin has no intrinsic value. They say it's just a digital asset with no real underlying worth. They point to the fact that it's not backed by any government or physical commodity.
And what about the argument that Bitcoin is mainly used for illegal stuff, like that it's the currency of choice for criminals on the dark web?
That's a common misconception that's been spread by the media. While Bitcoin has been used for illegal transactions in the past, just like any other currency, it's important to remember that the vast majority of Bitcoin activity is perfectly legal.
So how do we address these concerns and bridge the gap between the crypto enthusiasts and the skeptics?
I think education is key. The more people understand about blockchain technology, the underlying principles of Bitcoin and its potential benefits, the less fearful they'll be. We need to move beyond the hype and focus on the fundamentals.
It's also important to remember that Bitcoin is still a relatively young technology. It's constantly evolving and improving. What we're seeing today is just the beginning.
Exactly. Think about the early days of the internet. There was a lot of skepticism and uncertainty back then too. But look how far we've come. Bitcoin and blockchain technology have the potential to revolutionize finance in a similar way.
So for our listeners who are still on the fence about Bitcoin, what's the one key takeaway you want them to leave with today?
I'd say stay curious,
Yeah.
do your research, and don't be afraid to ask questions. The crypto world can seem intimidating at first, but it's also incredibly exciting. There's a ton of information available online in books and through communities of passionate individuals. Don't be afraid to dive in and explore.
Beautifully said. And remember, this deep dive into the world of Bitcoin is just a starting point. There's so much more to discover, and we'll continue to explore the ever-evolving landscape of crypto and beyond in future episodes. So until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep asking those big questions. The future of finance is being written as we speak, and you have the opportunity to be a part of it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
It really is a fascinating time to be involved in crypto.
It is. It feels like we're on the verge of like a major shift in finance.
I agree.
But as exciting as all this is, I know not everyone's on board yet. There are still plenty of skeptics out there who think Bitcoin is just a bubble that's going to burst.
That's true. You always have skeptics with disruptive tech, especially when it comes to something that challenges the whole financial system. I think it's important to hear those dissenting voices and try to understand their concerns.
So, what are some of the main arguments against Bitcoin? What are the skeptics saying?
While some critics say Bitcoin has no intrinsic value, they say it's just a digital asset with no real worth behind it. They point out that it's not backed by a government or anything physical like gold.
Right. What about the argument that Bitcoin is mostly used for illegal stuff? Like that it's the currency of choice for criminals on the dark web?
That's a common misconception that the media loves to push. While Bitcoin has been used for illegal transactions in the past, just like any currency, the vast majority of Bitcoin activity is perfectly legal.
So, how do we bridge the gap between the crypto enthusiasts and the skeptics?
I think education is key. The more people understand about the technology, like blockchain and the fundamentals of Bitcoin, the less they'll fear it. We need to move past the hype and really focus on the core principles.
It's also important to remember that Bitcoin is still a young technology. It's constantly evolving and getting better. What we see today is just the beginning.
Exactly. Think about the internet back in the early days. There was so much skepticism and uncertainty then, too. But look how much has changed the world. Bitcoin and blockchain tech have that same potential to revolutionize finance.
So, for those listeners who are still on the fence about Bitcoin, what's the one key takeaway you'd want them to leave with today?
I'd say be curious to do your research and don't be afraid to ask questions. The crypto world might seem a bit intimidating at first, but it's also incredibly exciting. There's so much info out there online in books and through these amazing communities of passionate people. Just dive in and explore.
Beautifully said. And remember, folks, this deep dive into Bitcoin is just a starting point. There's a whole universe of knowledge out there, and we'll keep exploring the ever changing landscape of crypto and beyond in future episodes. So until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep those big questions coming. The future of finance is being written right now, and you have a chance to be a part of it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time, any day, minute game.